This anime follows the life of an old assassin, incredibly skilled. His nose is so sharp that he can even smell your lunch. In this world, he reincarnates after being betrayed by the very organization that created him to be an assassin. Oh, poor thing. After that, he finds himself in a new world with magic, and receives those supreme level abilities to make this video's title really big. But before all that happens, the old man receives the mission of eliminating the members of the mafia. Like a good Call of Duty player, he uses a sniper and starts shooting them one after another without any mercy. He does this alongside his partner and newly assigned assistant. The girl has no idea about the garbage that will happen to her in the future. At the moment, she is acting as a spotter and keeps informing him of the location of the other people who must be killed. Quickly, he keeps shooting them one by one and makes sure he doesn't miss any shots. This throws the mafia into panic, and those who remain alive hide behind their cars to protect themselves from the bullets. However, that doesn't stop this old bastard from finding a way to hit their heads. And since his sniper is .50 caliber, he can easily shoot them through the cars. After eliminating everyone, he stands up and tells her that their mission is finished since they've already taken down all their target. Upon hearing that, the girl becomes confused. That's because she expected them to eliminate all the mafia members who were hiding. In response, Lug tells her he is just an assassin, not a genocidal maniac, and that he only does what he is ordered to do. He doesn't consider himself a hero or anything like that. He is just an assassin who does what he's paid to do. And now that they've eliminated everyone they were instructed to kill, they must get out of that place immediately. The rookie, all curious, asks him if he knows why the organization would ask them to kill only the leaders. He answers that since their organization is ultra secret, their goal is probably to control the entire country, and by eliminating the mafia leaders, they would shift the whole mafia to their favor. When they are about to leave, he notices that a drone is tracking them, and he immediately orders her to get into the car. At that moment, his new mission becomes escaping from the drone safely, because that demon bug won't stop chasing them. While they drive, the drone continues to follow them, and that makes the old man realize that if they remain in the car, they will be sent straight to hell. So, while the rookie has no idea what's happening, Lug understands everything perfectly. And since it's hard for them to escape their pursuers, he instructs the rookie to do a ton of improvised tinkering inside the car. Next, he prepares the car to keep moving while they jump out. As they jump, the car continues being chased by a military vehicle, and the weapon with the wire that the girl made all that improvised work starts firing at the soldier. This ends up forcing a retaliation from them, leading them to blow up the vehicle, unaware that the old assassin and his assistant aren't inside. In reality, the two hide behind a rock, and when the coast is clear, the girl suggests they return to the base. However, Lug tells her they can't do that now, because the drone is still in the sky and can detect their heat signatures during the night. Therefore, he tells her that they will have to wait until the next day, because when the sun rises, the drone's infrared cameras will have trouble distinguishing their body temperatures. Shortly after, he notices she is injured and helps her bandage the wound. Then, the two decide to rest a bit, since they would have to leave early in the morning. They lie down on the ground, and suddenly, the girl begins asking questions as if she were an annoying assassin reporter. So the old man interrupts, saying this will be his last job, since he intends to retire after this and spend his days playing only Call of Duty at home. And whenever he is not playing, he will be an instructor for new assassin. Hearing that, she states she is not a novice and that she was the best in her class. In response, he tells her that her classmates were probably garbage, because she is a complete failure and a loudmouth. He even provokes her, saying that at 6 years old, he was far better than she is. With that said, the old man pulls out his gun and points it at her head. After doing that, he insults her, saying she is a terrible assassin for letting him take her weapon so easily. On top of that, he scolds her for trusting him, since he can easily pull the trigger and end her miserable life. The novice stands still, unable to make any movement, and after a while, the old man sees that she still has much to learn and lowers his weapon. He gives the gun back to her and gets ready to sleep. At that moment, she decides to return the favor and points her gun at him. The old man shows he is confident she cannot go through with it, and while she tries to figure out why he thinks that, he reveals he gave the gun back to her without any bullets, stating that while she is walking toward the objective, he arrived there long ago. This moral lesson ends up leaving her very disappointed with herself, and the next day, the two return to their base and manage to contact the organization. They are congratulated for completing the mission, and the leaders ask the old man if his partner is still alive. When he says yes, they inform him about a certain drawer, saying that inside it, he will find everything he needs to leave that country. Upon checking the drawer, he sees 2 fake passports, being 2 tickets back to Japan. Later, the two arrive at the airport and board the plane, and exactly when the old man relaxes and thinks about his future as an instructor and professional Call of Duty player, a massive turbulence occurs, leaving everyone on the plane in panic. One of the passengers checks his phone and discovers the plane has been hijacked. Immediately, the girl asks the old man what is happening, since there is no hijacker in sight. And realizing what is going on, he tells her this is not a hijacking, but an assassination attempt by their organization. Apparently, they want to kill him, because that is the only way to eliminate the greatest assassin the organization has. Hearing that, the girl is completely shocked and prepares to pray in the name of Christ. Meanwhile, Lug moves toward the cockpit, and a young woman tries to stop him from entering, but he shoots her out of his way with great care. And upon entering the control cabin, he discovers the pilots have gone to meet dear Uncle Lucifer. Immediately, he takes the pilot's seat and tries to save what remains of the plane, but then he notices a fighter jet flying beside his aircraft. In short, the plane he is in is about to be shot down. Unfortunately, Lug realizes his life has reached a dead end. In the end, he dies frustrated with the betrayal of the organization that abandoned him. And then, when he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a strange spiritual realm, where a beautiful and completely irresistible goddess stands before him. At first, she mocks him for being the best assassin on Earth and still being betrayed by his own organization. In response, the old man says that if he had a weapon, he would kill her. After that, he asks her why he is there, and in response, she says she will give him two options, and he asks if one of the options is staying with her. She ignores him and says the first one is that he will be reborn on Earth as a baby without any memory of who he was before, a very miserable option. Or he can simply reincarnate in an alternate world of magic and sorcery, where he will keep all his memories and experiences. However, he will have to use all his new abilities to assassinate a certain someone. The old man really wanted to stay there with her, but since that is not an option, he decides to ask her who she wants him to assassinate in the other world. Then she tells him she only needs him to kill the most powerful hero of that ice sky after the hero eliminates the Demon King. The old man begins to reflect on that, and the goddess even offers him some tea. It is in that moment that he begins to wonder if this reincarnation business truly exists. But she reveals to him that it is more common than one might imagine, and that normally they send a truck to do the job. But since the old man was a great reaper of souls, they ended up needing to send an entire airplane for him. On top of that, she says that almost all important souls have the option to reincarnate. Even Michael Jackson himself is dancing in another world. However, the people who insist on staying on planet Earth end up losing all their memories. After hearing that, the old man concludes that he wants to meet Michael Jackson, and says he will visit a new world, thus preserving his memories and ability. Apparently, he always thought of himself as a mere emotionless tool of the organization, but when he was about to die, he felt unhappy and frustrated. He also had other feelings as well, such as feeling used and feeling betrayed, and he realizes he was a person who never had his own life, which is quite sad. The goddess tells him to shut up and says she does not care what he will do with his new life. The only thing she wants is for him to kill the hero when the hero turns 18. With that said, she touches his head and transfers all the information about the new world to him, from the language to the culture. After understanding all the customs of the new world, a very interesting world, he asks the goddess why she wants to kill such a hero. And she says this hero will defeat the Demon King, and that after that he will change because his power will go to his head, causing the hero himself to become a demon, dominating the world and destroying it. And after hearing all that, the old man becomes happy and says he will indeed be the protagonist of this story. He enjoyed the entire plot. He asks the goddess if he can kill the hero whenever he wants, but she says no. She informs him that the hero is the only person who can kill the king of demons and tells him not to kill the hero until he has managed to do that, please. He immediately understands his mission and agrees with her. Also, after asking so much, if he did not understand, he really had to be old. After that, the goddess finally shows him a bunch of cards with different abilities, giving this old man the opportunity to build his own setup in another world. The old man ends up choosing several cards from different categories, and as a special bonus, the goddess grants him a hack that allows him to use all 4 magical attributes at will. When he finishes his selection, the goddess wishes him good luck and sends him to this new world, where he is born as a baby of a noble man. His new family comes from a long lineage of royal surgeons, but in the shadows they are a guild of highly trained assassins. This goddess is very intelligent, and she sent him to a perfect environment so he would become a highly skilled assassin. And upon learning all that, The old man becomes extremely satisfied. After that, many years pass, and the old man receives the name Lug. And now he is a young boy who has devoted himself greatly to his training. He enters a forest to test his abilities by hunting a rabbit in an open field. Arriving there, he finds the tracks and runs through the trees with speed, then immediately hangs from a branch and shoots directly into the rabbit's eye to kill it with a single shot. He takes the rabbit back to his home, where his mother greets him with great affection and offers to prepare the rabbit. However, he insists on preparing the rabbit himself. In his quest to become stronger, he believes he needs perfect nutrition. And since there is no protein powder in this world, he needs to make do with what he has. He uses various seasonings and herbs together with the meat to create a perfectly balanced meal. A meal he enjoyed with his entire family. Soon after eating, his father, cold as a stone, stands up and tells the boy to meet him in the basement, where he usually conducts his training. Shortly after, Lug goes to the basement, where he finds his father, who tells him to remove all his clothes. But wait, calm down. It is not what you are thinking. Lug's father only wants him to make some strange poses while he examines his body to see if he is growing properly as an assassin. He checks whether Lug is perfectly healthy and notices the boy is more developed than boys his age. After observing him attentively, his father tells him he believes he is ready for the eye surgery. And this is a secret no one outside their family knows. They have an exclusive surgical technique they use to make their eyes special, and this surgery can only be performed by the father on the son. Usually, the surgery is done when the son is already an adult. However, considering the strength Lug already has, his father decides it is time to perform it. The next day, after the surgery, he cannot see due to having his eyes bandaged because of the procedure. His mother then feeds him, and when it seems things are getting out of control, he runs toward his father, who finally removes the bandage. And when he opens his eyes, he sees the beautiful scenery of his father's entire property. He tries to focus his eyes, and now he can clearly see things that are very far away. In addition, he gains the ability to see in the dark, which will be perfect for his nightly jobs. He turns and thanks his father, and that is when he realizes he can see the amount of mana his father has. At that moment, his father informs him that he has secured an excellent tutor who will teach him how to use magic starting tomorrow. And that makes Lug extremely happy, because he is dying to learn more about this world's magic. The next day, his mother goes all out and forces him to wear a princess dress. Yes, she forces him to welcome his new tutor wearing that woman's outfit. Some time later, Lug's instructor arrives, and she is a young girl with silver hair. She introduces herself as Daya, and after that she approaches her new student Lug, who at that moment seems to be the most feminine-looking person in this world. Looking at him, Daya says he seems too young to learn magic, and in response Lug tells her to go to hell, which leaves her slightly irritated. And to show him how strong she is, she demonstrates an explosion, which excites him. Next, she tells him that even though she looks young, she is one of the 4 strongest mages in the entire kingdom, and that from now on, she will train him day and night to make him at least the 5th strongest mage in the kingdom. The next day, Lug's training begins, and the two formally present themselves in the garden. There, Daya tells Lug not to be so formal because she is only 3 years older than him. But he insists that she is still his teacher, and therefore she deserves full respect. In response, Daya hands him a beautiful crystal orb, and she reveals that this stone is used to measure the amount of mana a person naturally has. The more mana you have, the more complex and destructive the magic you can perform. At that moment, she tells him to place all his mana into the stone. However, what she did not know is that Lug has a tremendous amount of mana, and those stones have a limit for storing mana within them. And upon seeing so much mana accumulating in one stone, Daya becomes horrified and yells for him to throw the stone as far away as possible. So Lug immediately increases his strength and throws the stone into the air, causing it to explode with a loud blast, revealing spoilers that in the end of the anime My Hero Academia, Midoriya becomes a powerless disabled loser. Hearing the explosion, Lug's parents come running and ask if they are all right, and Daya becomes completely shaken by what she has just witnessed. She thinks the boy's parents must be angry because of that. However, the boy's parents are not angry at all, and they celebrate the fact that Lug has so much magic. They thank Daya for making them realize the great power their son has, and leave them alone to continue the training. Lug, on the other hand, becomes obsessed with those shining stones. He believes those stones can be an important weapon against the great hero, thanks to their explosive property. Not only that, but he really wants to have C4 in this world. That stone is absolutely perfect. This leads him to ask Daya about the stones and where he can acquire them. Daya, however, says those stones are not something he can simply buy in a store. She explains all the bureaucracy involved in obtaining one. And just by hearing that, Lug already gets a headache. So, my friends, night arrived. and Daya ends up sneaking into Lug's room, and she decides to sleep with him, claiming he is her younger brother. She had no idea she was sleeping with an elderly man in the body of a boy full of testosterone. The next day, they go to the edge of a river, and she hands him another stone. This time, she tells him to put only a small amount of mana into it because she wants to check which attributes he has. First, she checks if he has a fire attribute, and she becomes happy to see that he does, allowing him to burn his enemies. Just to be sure, she also checks the water attribute, stating it is very rare for someone to have 2 attributes and that she is one of the few who possess them. However, to her great surprise, Lug has both attributes, and that makes her very happy, because now she can teach him all the spells she knows. At that moment, Lug remembers the goddess's word, that he would have the hack of all attributes, so he asks Daya to check that as well. But she laughs in his face and says it is impossible for someone to have 3 attributes, because no one in history ever had that. However, she shuts up when she realizes he even has a wind attribute. Out of curiosity, she checks once more, and realizes this boy has all 4 attributes, which is completely unprecedented in this world. She regains her composure once more, and contemplates the fact that she cannot play around with this boy. After that, she sits beside him, tries to take his magical virginity, awakening his innate magic. Suddenly, Lug managed to use magic to perform a wide variety of things. So the goddess informs him that the more spells he uses, the more spells he will be able to learn. He, however, finds it difficult to think of these spells, so the goddess takes the lead and shows him how to perform one of the most basic earth spells, which involves the creation of copper. The goddess performs it effortlessly, and Lug tries to reproduce it, saying what she said. However, since he is a foreign body in this world, his pronunciation ends up being completely wrong, this being a failure of the goddess. So he ends up creating a huge block of copper with severe health issues. Later, that night, he writes down everything he learned, and the goddess enters his room once again to sleep beside him, mischievous. The next day, after practicing several times, he finally manages to produce a piece of copper that does not have cancer. Seeing this, the goddess becomes enthusiastic about how he is progressing extremely quickly. Then Lug asks if she could write for him some spells she learned, because he wants to try them directly. The girl writes a spell for him, and he chants it. And since reading is much easier than trying to imitate, he ends up producing a block of iron immediately. At that moment, Lug realizes that the spells are only slightly different from each other, because the spell he used to create copper is exactly the same as the one he used to make iron. Knowing this, he becomes excited and asks the goddess to write the spells she knows one by one on a piece of paper. She appears reluctant at first because this will take a long time, but she decides to give in and begins writing the spells. After reading the spells, he realizes that what changes in each metal is essentially the atomic weight. He tries to explain this to the goddess, but the girl never wanted to understand this, so he continues and asks her to write a spell for him. Although she writes the same spell for iron, he changes the atomic weight to that of gold, and then he tells the goddess to recite the spell. She tries to do so, but suddenly she collapses to the ground with a strong headache. This is how he realizes that not everyone can use hacks in this world, so he takes the paper and writes a few things before chanting it. And incredibly, this time he manages to create a bright gold bar. Surprising the goddess, he makes a few alterations to the spell using one of his abilities. And suddenly, even the goddess is able to bypass the world system and create gold. And thus, the 2 aspiring alchemists become extremely delighted. Several days after that, Lug manages to produce complex metals from those metals, so they go to the riverbank, and he creates a rifle with his magic and uses a spell to fire magical bullets with it. The goddess is also able to replicate it, which makes him happy, because now he can use this rifle against the great hero. However, he does not have enough firepower for someone so strong, so he creates a giant cannon, not the kind we know, but an actual giant cannon. He asks the goddess to cover her ears if she does not want to become deaf, and fires at the island before them, destroying it completely. Satisfied with the firepower of this cannon, Lug notices that the cannon's axis exploded, which makes him realize that he needs a more powerful metal to create such a weapon. He asks the goddess if she wants to try it, but she refuses, saying she is perfectly fine using only her rifle. That day, but during the night, while they are lying beside each other, the goddess seems extremely emotional, because this is her last day working as the magic doctor of this prodigious boy. Now she has to leave and return to her kingdom, and being an old man in the body of a boy, Lug refuses to show his emotions. Instead, he uses his magical ability to create a dagger from a very powerful metal, probably the iron used in the sandal my mother used to hit me and leave me mentally ill like this. He demonstrates how sharp this knife is and tells her that this is his farewell gift. The goddess becomes satisfied with this, and in return she removes her pendant, which carries a beautiful stone, and gives it to Lug, making him promise that he will find her again in the future. The next day, she enters her carriage once more and leaves the mansion, thanking everyone for having received her and promising that she will return one day. At that moment, Lug's father looks at him and reveals that he can feel an immense amount of mana coming from the boy. He realizes that Lug is ready for the first step in becoming an assassin. That night, he takes Lug to a large prison that contains many inmates on death row. These inmates are left there so everyone in the clan can experiment with new drugs and assassination tactics. But before any entertaining activity in that place, Lug asks his father why he raised him to have human emotions, since that would only hinder his ability to kill other human beings. However, his father reassures him, saying he does not want Lug to become a tool of assassination. He wants his son to actually have human emotions, and he wants him to have a life outside all of this, where he can live as a normal person instead of being nothing more than a killing machine. After that, they arrive at one of the cells, where his father shows him the real entertainment. Right in front of him, there is a 19-year-old girl tied to a chair and gagged. He removes the gag, and she begins begging for her life, pleading for him to stop. Poor thing. His father informs him that she infiltrated the home of an elderly couple, and when they returned, she ended up killing them and setting their house on fire. She cried, poor thing, saying she only wanted to find food, and claims the couple's death was a mistake, and the reason she burned the entire house was because she was extremely afraid. Poor thing. She begs him to spare her life, but without hesitation, Lug begins the entertainment, cutting off one of her hands. This catches her completely off guard, and she starts screaming and cursing them, complaining to Lug's father because he assured her that if she begged Lug, he might end up sparing her life. Lug, however, knows what people are like, and he plunges his knife into her throat, silencing her mouth full of diseases once and for all. After that very entertaining day, a few years pass, and now Lug is an incredible 10 years old. It is a very pleasant day, and he and his family are walking through the market, where everyone seems busy selling their products because winter is approaching. While the men talk, his mother befriends some vendors. But Lug actually does not want to buy products. He only wants to find anyone who has a little hibana. But he ends up discovering that this is more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. And since only 8 years remain before he must assassinate the hero, he feels that he needs an assistant to help him. He tries his best to find a commoner with some kind of mana within them, but he finds no one. Everyone is useless in this world. What misery. The next day he heads into the forest to enjoy himself hunting. While looking around, he suddenly hears a howl and brings his ear close to the ground to listen to a pack of wolves chasing prey. He decides to follow the sound and possibly steal prey from the wolf. However, when he finally sees what is happening, he realizes the wolves are trying to attack a defenseless little girl with a filthy appearance, completely dirty and soaked. One of the wolves tries to attack her, but he quickly shoots an arrow into its head. Then he jumps in front of the girl to protect her, even if she smells terrible. To do this, he cuts down the wolves and decides he will turn it into a simple training exercise. Before doing that, he hands his equipment to the girl and takes his knife. At that moment, one of the wolves attacks him, but he quickly stabs it in the neck. Another tries to go after the girl, but he pushes it away with a kick, while the other two wolves leap at him simultaneously and grab his arms with their jaws. Fortunately, he is well equipped, and these bites do not even affect him, so he simply rotates his body to smash them into the ground, then immediately punches the last wolf straight in the head, thus ending his small training session. After eliminating them, he returns to the girl and asks what she is doing alone in the forest. At this moment, she becomes frightened and says she is only lost and that she does not want to harm him in any way. He tells her that even if she wanted to, she could not hurt him because she is weak. The girl continues speaking, saying her family is very poor and they did not have enough food for everyone, so they ended up expelling her from home and leaving her to die. She states that she met a kind stranger who told her that in the Estuarid region, which is the region where Lug's family lives, she would find something to eat and would be happy there. Lug realizes that this very kind person sent her there only to die, and feeling pity for the girl, Lug gives her his jacket and begins cooking a small bowl of porridge for her. When he finishes, he hands her the bowl and tells her to eat slowly, because if she eats too fast, she may end up vomiting. The girl introduces herself as Tard, and thankfully she eats the warm meal he prepared. Then he reveals his identity as the son of the lord of the Estuarid region, and upon hearing this, she immediately brightens and tells him that this is incredible. She reveals that a goddess had told her that she would have a fated encounter that would allow her to live an amazing life filled with honor. And it is at that moment that Lug realizes the goddess may be trying to help him. After all, he had noticed from the very beginning, right after meeting her, that this girl was the perfect combination to become his servant. After all, she is overflowing with mana. Happy, he offers to take her to his home so she can have a place to live and also never starve again. However, he says that if she goes to his home, she will have to follow his orders all the time, and some of the orders may include killing other people. After telling her all of this, he lets her make the final decision, asking if she wants to go with him or not, and seizing the only chance she ever had in her life. She agrees joyfully, stating that she was never wanted by anyone, and that in this world, he is the only one who said he needs her. After that, 2 years pass, and Lug is being awakened by Tart, who has now grown and become a very beautiful girl. A woman with the potential to comfort any man, either hitting him or giving affection, and due to the fact that she is very hardworking, Lug's parents adore her. However, on the first night he brought her home, his father told him that he could only keep her under 2 conditions. The first is that he himself should train her and guarantee that if she drained him, he would give her the worst pain, starring in the worst anime of all time. And the second, Lug does not remember. After remembering this, he tells the girl to meet him in the basement for that routine review. The same review his father did with him while he was being trained. He examines her body to make sure she improved physically, and after revealing he is satisfied with her progress, he turns around to leave. At that moment, she tries to attack him with a knife, but he manages to overpower her easily. But I think she did not want to attack him. I think she actually wanted to be attacked in that scene. You can censor that, editor. Anyway, she is very good with a knife, but Lug knows that the weapon she is incredibly good with is a spear. However, the problem is that a spear is not very easy to hide and is too bulky for an assassination. This makes him conclude that he will give her a different tool that is difficult to handle. Do you want to know which toy it will be? Leave a like and subscribe. That night, he heads to the basement and finds her practicing her knife skills on the dummy. However, she cannot handle it correctly and becomes embarrassed for being so weak. She apologizes for training without his permission, but he simply produces a spear that can be folded into a small size and can be hidden. She tests the spear using the dummy. Unfortunately, this time she hits the target every single time. She even ends up destroying the dummy completely and thanks Lug for this new tool. Then the two go to bed to spend the night. The next day, Lug goes to the market and is adored by all the people. Everyone wants to give him so many gifts, and when he returns to his home, his carriage is full of fruits and vegetables from the local farmers. He returns to his home and checks his stock of stone. It turns out he discovered how to produce that special stone himself. A dye refused to teach him, so he was forced to learn it on his own. And now he is filling all those stones with mana, because if he does not kill the hero, he intends to blow up the entire world. Suddenly, Tart informs him that he is being called by his father and asked to go to the training room. When he arrives there, his father asks him about Tart's abilities, and he answers, stating that he trained her to the point that she is as strong as the other members of the Tuatha Dé family. Then his father asks Lug if they can trust her, because he suspects Tart may have been sent by an espionage organization to steal their family's secrets. However, Lug responds saying that his father is a denier and that the girl is calm and favorable and extremely beautiful. Joking aside, he responds saying that he has watched her for the last years and observed her body movements, which allowed him to be certain that she is not a spy. He assures his father that if she were a spy, he would have killed her. At that moment, even his father admits that he believes she is not a spy. And now he believes it must have been the work of God that Lug found such a talented girl like her. He then reveals that Lug is strong and old enough to take the final exams to become a true assassin. He asks Lug if he is ready for this, and the boy answers that he is not, leaving it for tomorrow. However, his father tells him to go outside, because his first test will start now, and it will be a fight against him in the middle of the forest. Lug gets dressed and goes out. Then the two enter the forest to begin. At this point in his life in another world, Lug believes he has complete advantage, because he not only has the XP from the assassinations of his previous life, but he has cultivated his skills very well in his current life. In short, he believes he will defeat his own father. He climbs a tree when, suddenly, his father fires several arrows in his direction. Fortunately, he dodges them and jumps from the tree to try to find his father, who once again fires at him. He dodges and throws a knife at him, which his father manages to block. In retaliation, he tries to cut Lug with his knife, but he dodges and tries to kick him. However, his father responds quickly. He grabs Lug's leg before breaking one of his bones. Lug quickly kicks him away and jumps into some bushes, where he rapidly heals his bones with the help of his incredible recovery magic. He then runs down the hill, where his father prepared a trap, and he manages to dodge the trap. But he is immediately attacked by his father, who encourages him to fight harder. While Lug tries to block his attacks, he manages to grab one of his father's hands and kick him in the ribs, forcing him to retreat into the forest. Shortly afterward, he attacks Lug again. However, Ganodo had already predicted his father's movement, and thanks to that, he is able to dodge his father's attack. although he ends up being slightly stabbed in the shoulder. However, not all hope is lost, because Lug also manages to place his blade on his father's throat, ending the battle with victory. After that, the two return from the forest and find Tart preparing tea for them. After that, his father treats his wound while telling him that he taught him everything he could have taught, and that now it is time for him to experience assassinations firsthand. He takes Lug to a place where he must kill a man who uses his position to abuse girls, and after a successful mission, the two jump through the window. After that, we see them going around offering poisons in the form of palliatives to several other wealthy bastards. Lug was finally happy in that world, doing what he enjoys doing. And while they burn one of them, they make everything look like a simple accident, so that no one suspects an assassination happened there. The next day, Lug's father takes him to treat a wealthy noble who is sick, and after the matter is settled, on the way back, his father tells him about the plan to send him to another city to live under a false identity. As the bastard son of a very famous merchant, Lug is instructed to stay with them for 2 years and become a very well-known merchant, which will help him commit future assassinations. Yes, nobles usually invite merchants into their homes, and many times merchants pass through the guards without even being checked. Upon hearing this, Lug agrees, saying that the plan is perfect and the father loves him. But before the boy travels, his father organized a great banquet with the presence of all the members of his family. And damn, what a gigantic family, there his father boasts, saying that his son is the youngest member in the history of the family to pass the final test. Then he reveals that Lug will become the new head of the family after his death, which seems to irritate some of the family members. One of them throws a wine glass at Lug, which he catches quickly. It turns out that this fool refuses to recognize someone younger than him as head of the family, and he wants to challenge Lug to a fight. Knowing his son's power, Lug's father agrees. However, before the fool can even blink, Lug appears behind him with a knife at his throat and his little finger in his rear, ending the fight in an instant, and the boy simply wet himself and only did not soil himself for other reasons there. And before leaving to begin his new life, Lug decides to call his idiot cousin and recognize his strength. He offers to make the idiot his subordinate, promising to ensure he will be treated extremely well. And even though the failure seems reluctant at first, he ends up agreeing to Lug's conditions. At that moment, in celebration, Lug gives him his beautiful digital sword as a gift and goes away. The next day, Lug arranges his equipment, and together with Tart, enters the carriage on the way to the new city, where he will begin his new life as the son of a merchant, and he will be called by another name that I will avoid using. It will be just Lug. Later, we see Lug arriving in his new city and settling into his new home. This city is one of the most prosperous regions of the kingdom because of its commerce, and to assume his new identity, he immediately hides who he is, changing his silver hair to black. He even puts on a pair of glasses, which helps him assume a completely different identity. One day, he receives a report about an orphanage in this area that sells little girls to wealthy nobles, and he discovers that they have a girl who can use magic. This leads him to visit the orphanage. When he arrives there, he finds a beautiful blue-haired girl crying, holding a scythe, while she is about to disfigure her own face. This is because she believed that if she had a horrible face, people would not buy her and abuse her. And upon seeing her in this state, Lug grabs her hand and asks her to stop. With great gentleness, he tells her that she should smile more, because she looks beautiful with a smile on her face. Shortly after, he meets the owner of the orphanage, an ugly fat man who shows him some girls. He observes them carefully and notices that the blue-haired girl is the only one who has mana, and tells the owner that he will buy her. The owner says her name is Mara, and that she is a special girl, so he will charge 3 times the normal price. But money is not a problem for Lug. After giving him the money, the owner says he will give the girl a wash because she is completely dirty. Then he tells Lug to return in 3 days. But in reality, the man only wanted a chance to exercise with her, if you understand. At this point in the story, Mara was completely terrified, but she cannot speak a single word because that would harm her and the other girls. Right before Lug leaves, he tells the fat man not to touch Mara, because now she is like a member of his family. The fat man, however, has different plans, because he intends to farm some extra money with her. That night, he washes her in that disgusting affectionate way and takes her in a carriage on the way to a noble's mansion. On the way, Mara remembers how Lug was gentle with her when they met, and now she is determined to make sure she offers herself to him as a pure virgin girl, so she escapes from the carriage and runs into the forest. One of the guards, however, also has mana like her, so he reaches her and grabs her from behind, and at the moment he was about to explore a storyline development with her, Lug arrives and knocks him to the ground. The fat man arrives at the scene and is shocked to see Lug there. He says he should bring her to him in 3 days and then asks why he is here. But Lug tells him that he noticed the man's evil intentions. Angry, the fat man orders his subordinate to attack Lug. and the bastard actually runs at him, trying to punch him. However, Lug quickly dodges the attack and breaks the bastard's arm in half. Next, the fat man tries to attack him from behind, but Lug dodges once again and places a knife on the man's throat. Then he asks Mara what is happening, and she tells him that she and the other girls were orphans and used to stay together in the slums. Apparently, they used to help tourists in the city and received a small amount of money for the tours, and some restaurants even paid them to bring tourists. Even though that did not give them much, they were happy and satisfied with their poor lives. But unfortunately, on a certain day, the fat man's thugs attacked them out of nowhere, and because she was the only one who had mana, she obviously tried to stop them. But they ended up capturing all of them and brought them back to the orphanage, where they were thrown into a room and received only a few vegetables to eat for the entire week. When the girls grew older, that disgusting fat man began selling them one by one to nobles who obviously treated them very badly. And this kept happening to almost all the girls, and the shame caused by this made one of them use a scythe on her own face, hoping that the scar would make it impossible for her to be used. In the end, to get close to these nobles, Tart disguises herself as one of the girls, and when a certain noble was about to start his dirty work, he ended up being arrested. Back at the orphanage, Lug fixes the frightened girl's face and takes Mara with him to begin a new life. And now several months have passed since Lug took Mara. Since then, he has been doing an incredible job with his new merchant family. Lord Balor, Lug's new father, informs him that he took care of all the paperwork and that they adopted Mara as his younger sister legally and successfully. Lug is satisfied with this information. This would help him work with Mara without raising suspicion. Later, Lord Balor takes him into a room where he shows him the floor plan of a shop at an important crossroads in the city. He states that he opened a beverage shop some time ago, but the shop was a complete failure, forcing him to close it. And now he wants to hand it over to Lug, because he believes the boy is the only one who could give the shop a new life. At first, Lug seems reluctant, but he agrees and returns to his home, where Tart and Mara prepare an excellent dinner for him. And while the three of them eat, Lug tells them his plans. He informs them that he was asked to take control of a shop, and now he intends to use it to promote his main objective, which is to kill the great hero in the most efficient way possible. He continues explaining that the first goal of the shop would be to earn as much money as possible, because that would prevent the shop from closing anytime soon. The second goal would be to sell something that would attract nobles, so they could get even closer to them. Both girls ask if he has something in mind, and he tells them he intends to sell drugs and sweets in his shop. He believes his main customers will be women. Mara, however, wants to know how he intends to enter the drug market, especially the market focused on women, since it is already saturated. However, Lug says that this is not a problem because he came from another world and has plenty of skill in all of them. Well, that is what I thought. But in truth, he says he has a plan he will reveal soon. The next day, we see that Lug is completely prepared to share his plan with Lord Balor and his wife seems to hate Lug very much. After all, she believes he is her husband's illegitimate child. She covers her face for some strange reason, which we will probably discover very soon. Then Lug opens his mouth and tells them about his plan to create something that does not compete with current cosmetics, but complements the cosmetics already being sold. He tells them how women's makeup is a nuisance for them to apply, and that everything women use nowadays to look more beautiful ends up leaving their skin dry at the end of the day when they wash their faces. And the first product he intends to sell is a special cosmetic that can eliminate this problem entirely at once. This product is called moisturizer by him, a product that has not yet been invented in this world. So, to test it, his stepmother takes a bottle and applies some on the back of her hand, and she ends up shocked by the new softness of her skin. At that moment, she decides to remove her facial mask to try it on her face. Her face is something frightening, but perhaps the products Lug intends to sell will solve her problems. She applies the moisturizer and becomes delighted when she discovers her completely soft skin. To show the product's effectiveness even more, Lug tells her to try applying makeup on top of it. She does so and becomes delighted by the ease of applying makeup over the moisturizer. Lug wants to know if she likes the product, and she immediately answers saying she hates his boldness, but she truly liked the moisturizer a lot. Seeing his wife so happy, Lord Balor asks if she could share this with some of her friends, and then asks Lug how much of this moisturizer he can produce in a week. Lug answers that for now only he can produce it, so it will be around 200 bottles. Wanting to increase that number, Lord Balor tells him to hire more people, But he tells him that if they hire more people now, many enemy companies could try to steal the formula's secret, bribing their new workers to obtain it. Realizing that Lug is right, Lord Balor asks how long it will take to establish mass production of this item, and Lug answers that this can be done by the end of the month. However, he tells Lord Balor that this cosmetic requires a special ingredient that can only be produced in the region of Torrid. And seeing this, Lord Balor makes no objection and lets Lug do whatever he wants. On the way back home, Lug reveals to Tart that he made sure to include a completely rare substance that can only be obtained in the region of Torrid, so Lord Balor would not reject it so easily. And this, according to him, would also provide more money for the region of Torrid, which would be the only supplier of such an item. And after a few months, we see that Lug's business has become a complete success. Many women arrived every day to buy the largest possible number of moisturizers, and since there are not many at the moment, he was forced to impose a limit of 2 bottles per customer. He also appointed Mara as the shop's manager, and she ended up hiring the entire group of girls who were with her at the orphanage to work with her. In the afternoon, Lug sits very close and witnesses how the whole shop is being run, effortlessly and without problems. And now he seems happy for having allowed Mara to hire her friends, because this way they could be lifelong companions. Besides that, all of Mara's friends are young and beautiful, which is essential for a cosmetics shop. As expected, rival companies are trying their hardest to get their hands on the moisturizer's formula. Lug is pleased to hear this and tells Tart to maintain security, because they cannot risk other people discovering the formula so quickly. That night, while he is trying to sleep, he notices that someone infiltrated his house and is crawling across the ceiling toward his room. Lug quickly realizes that a high-level spy must have been hired, because he managed to conceal his presence until he was very close to him. And when he was about to stand up and teach that lunatic a lesson, Tart opens the door to the room and uses her spear to stab the ceiling. She assures Lug that he does not need to worry, because she applied a neurotoxin to the tip of her spear to paralyze the spy. Mara was also on the ceiling, and she comes down to inform them that the spy was successfully captured. They then take him to the dungeons, where the man is stripped, and soon after he begins receiving light torture. The girls only want to obtain any kind of information about who sent him in exchange for his life. However, they do not intend to release him. They may not kill him, but he will not have freedom. The next day, Lug prepares to depart for the neighboring kingdom where Daya is located. He had promised to meet her once a month, and since his master is away, the 2 girls decide to have a quality meal. Upon arriving in the kingdom, Lug goes straight to Daya's room through the window, and she is extremely happy to see him. She then hands him a pile of papers with new spells she created herself. One spell in particular catches Lug's attention, and he asks her to try it so he can see it. With this spell, she is able to reverse the gravity of any object of her choice, completely shocking Lug. After the 2 talk for a while, Lug gives her a box of chocolates he recently created, and Daya has no idea what it is, since chocolate has not yet been invented in this world. To her, the chocolate looks like a piece of excrement. However, Lug tells her to try it immediately, and after tasting them, she loves them. She makes Lug promise that he will bring more chocolates next month when he visits her. After agreeing to that, the 2 spend more time talking, reading, and practicing magic. And when their beautiful days are coming to an end, Lug prepares to return. They say their goodbyes, and he flies back to meet Tart and Maha. Days later, Lug is sitting in an open space, drinking his tea as if he had managed to succeed in life. He observes how his cosmetics business has grown. However, at that moment Tart returns from her mission and is happy to see her master in good health. She hands him the spoils of war. She brought with her some buttons from the clothes of the men she killed, and Lug tells her that he heard some reports about her great skills on the battlefield, saying that people even gave her a nickname, which she finds quite embarrassing. It turns out that Lug had sent her to battlefields so she could gain experience, while he kept Maha with him to learn how to deal with information and money, managing the cosmetics shop. And because he has the best cosmetics brand, he manages to establish connections with nobles. And thus he is invited to attend a meeting with the nobles, receives invitations for dinners, and many invitations for parties. But unfortunately, this is about to end, because he needs to return to his kingdom. At night, Lug has a meeting with Maha, where he tells her that she will be in charge of the cosmetics shop while he is away, and she obviously promises to do an excellent job, expanding his brand to neighboring cities, even saying she found a good shop for them to buy and begins showing it to Lug on a map. Looking at the map, Lug realizes that the shop Maha is trying to buy actually belongs to her father, who was a merchant and owner of a famous trading company. Unfortunately, he was betrayed by the company's right-hand man, who killed him and his wife and took control of the company, leaving Maha with no choice but to flee instead of being forced into marriage, ending up in the situation where Lug found her. After realizing this, Lug begins to believe that she is trying to reclaim what belongs to her and take revenge on the person who murdered her parents. However, to support her, Lug tells her to do whatever she wants because he completely believes in her, which makes her entirely happy and ready to do an excellent job. At that exact moment, Maha's friends enter the room and hand him a gift bag containing a fine and rare herbal tea. They tell him this is a small way to show gratitude for what he did for them and to thank him for taking all of them off the streets and caring for them. They also say their goodbyes and wish him good luck on his journey back home, and finally hope he will visit them from time to time. Lug shows his gratitude and promises never to forget them, no matter where he goes. Maha helps Lug get ready for the trip, and it is at that moment that she discovers the natural color of his hair, and she finds everything incredible, including Tart, who is also getting dressed to go with him. Finally, it is time to return home, and Lug and Tart get into a carriage and say goodbye to Maha. On the way, out of nowhere, they are surrounded by several wolf monsters. The two step out of the carriage and tell the coachwoman to hide. Tart volunteers to kill the monsters as a way to show him how much she has improved, and in an instant she is able to kill all of them. Hearing this, Lug praises her for having trained herself so well and become so strong. But he notices that now it seems the wolves are entering the places where humans live, and that this is happening more frequently. This means that the demon lord will appear soon. After noticing that, they return to the carriage to continue the trip. Very quickly, they reach the farmlands of the Tuarid region, where Lug decides to visit the farmers, who become very happy to have him among them. They thank him for having helped them even when he was away, and for returning and coming to speak with them, being such a humble man. Because of that, they give him a basket of good vegetables, and he thanks them. When he arrives home, it is his mother who welcomes him, hugging him with joy and smelling him, which makes him feel uncomfortable. He asks the woman where his father is, and she tells him to find him in his office. Arriving there, he finds his father writing some things. Even while working, the man praises him, saying that now he is an adult, and also says that he is proud that he managed to build a famous cosmetics brand, mentioning Lord Balor. His father offers him a seat and says that Balor visited him a few days earlier, asking him to reconsider Lug's career choice, saying that the boy will be far more valuable as a merchant than as an assassin. Because of that, Balor would like Lug to help him in his business, and Lug's father said he would not stop the boy if he chose to follow that path. After hearing that, Lug tells his father that he will not stop being an assassin, and says he only went to the great cities to learn to be a merchant and become an even better assassin. Then he reveals that he agrees with Balor's idea and tries to advise him to live a life as a merchant, since he never really worked as an assassin on his own. He suggests it would be better for him to leave and live disguised, so if something happened to the Tuarid family, he would survive. However, Lug tells his father that he prefers to stay and be an assassin because he wants to help maintain peace in this kingdom, which would also influence peace in the neighboring kingdom, where he met many people he would like to protect. Besides that, he thinks that even if he is given work to assassinate people, this time he himself will judge whether he should do it or not, completely opposite to his previous life, when he would kill even his own mother or himself if ordered. He mentions to his father that he is in love with Daya and would like to marry her, but he will not be able to do that if he becomes a merchant, because she is a noble. Therefore, he has to remain a noble. Hearing that, his father laughs at him and says that he should be an aristocratic assassin, and decides to give him the best assassination job he has received recently. The job consists of killing a noble who smuggles drugs into their kingdom, and this noble is so disgusting that he has been selling their military secrets in exchange for drugs, which is causing suffering to their people. Therefore, he needs to be removed from the kingdom as quickly as possible. In addition, his father tells him that he will leave him in absolute control of this job, that he will do everything alone, and Lug assures him that he will do a perfect job. Later that night, Lug tells Tart about the mission, which is to kill a count named Venker, a noble drug dealer. Then he writes encoded messages about the mission on a piece of paper and attaches them to a bird's leg. These messages will be delivered to Mar, so she can learn more about this count and his family. The next morning, his mother is the first person he sees in his room. She disturbs him, saying that he needs to see something, and forces him to get out of bed. After that day's breakfast, his mother calls him and shows him photos of the beautiful girls they selected to become his wives. Even though I say wives in the plural, he only needs to choose one of them to give her the grandchildren she desires. However, Lug refuses. which makes his mother ask if Tart would like to have his children instead. She shyly accepts. She only wants 10. However, she will only do this if Lug wants it, but he is not interested in any of that. At night, Lug and Tart prepare for their mission and run toward the city of the Wicked Count. After running for a while, it is already morning, and they can finally see the city up close. Lug tells the girl this is the second largest merchant city. After he opened his shop, they decide to enter the city, where they find many wounded soldiers begging for food in the streets. However, Lug sees the Count's selfish behavior of selling his military secrets in exchange for drugs. While walking through a dark alley, a young girl approaches them and tries to sell them her current jelly, which makes Lug suspect something. He hands one to Tart so they can try it, and the two decide to pretend they are a couple. Because of Lug's suspicion, he decides to taste the jelly, but realizes that this damn jelly is filled with drugs. Immediately, Lug confronts the girl, ordering her to confess her mistake. The girl places a basket full of jelly jars on the ground. At that moment, Tart instantly reacts. Lug confronts the men and knocks them out in little time. They decide to ask the girl why she is selling this jelly, which leads her to take them to her home. And when she opens the door, she shows them her mother, who is now completely out of her mind craving drugs. When she sees her daughter, the woman runs toward the girl and asks, "Where are the drugs?" The girl tells her she could not get any and helps pull her out of the drug's influence, which leaves her unconscious, and the poor little girl runs to check on her mother. Lug shows this entire scene to Tart and says that even though he removed all the drugs from the woman's body, he cannot remove the mental addiction that she ended up developing. With that said, they return home, where they are received once again by Lug's mother, who has just received some cosmetics from her son's company. On the other side of the screen, we see that Maha sent a letter to Lug, together with these cosmetics. In the letter, she says she investigated this Count and discovered he is responsible for several crimes, and that the drug he sells makes the body fall into endless addiction. To make everything worse, he cannot be punished because he has the support of high-ranking nobles. After reading all this, Lug becomes more than determined to make this man pay for his crime, and Maha even told them how they can enter the man's house. The next day, Lug and Maha meet to travel to the place of their mission. Inside a carriage, she tells him she is dying of longing for him, even though he only left 10 days ago. Her friends are eager to develop a romantic plot with him. However, he chooses to remain impure and virginal, ignoring all the girls. He tells Maha that he only sees her and her friends as his family, and nothing more, revealing he is in love with Daya. Finally, they arrive at their destination, which is the Count's house. However, they are received by the Count's wife, who seems very happy to welcome them. She invites them to enter the house, where she begins testing Lug's products on the spot. She tests them and loves everything. However, she has a question. Why was she chosen to be one of the first testers of this product? Then Lug says it is simple. Her husband is a Count full of connections, which makes his wife the best person to test the products first. After all, she is a woman admired by many other women. The woman becomes very happy upon hearing this and reveals that in the past they were poor nobles. However, her husband's business is going well, and now they are wealthy nobles. At that moment, the Count himself, the man who will soon die, arrives in the room full of joy and welcomes Lug and Maha. Lug returns his greeting. Lord Venker says he strongly supports his wife's love for cosmetics and also invites them to participate in a party he will host at his home. With that said, Venker goes to his wife and exchanges saliva with her, while Lug watches and thinks, "I am not killing this bastard." At night, during the party, the women become very excited with Lug's presence. They tell him that they would like to try the new products as well. "I thought the women wanted bananas, but I guess it was only products." Venker arrives to hand a glass of wine to Lug. He tells Lug that he is very happy with his wife being happy, and he teases Lug by telling the boy not to have an affair of wine. Lug replies with complete certainty that he would never do that. How disgusting. He tries to talk business with the Count, asking what he did for his business to do so well and what he has been doing. But the Count tries to cover up all his filth, saying that he just got lucky and that Lug does not need to keep an eye on that. His answers were incorrect, and Lug became even angrier. That same night, when the party ended and everyone returned home, Lug went with Tart to a cliff, a place that allowed him to have a good view to commit a certain assassination. And as the Count's wife had said earlier, while they were talking, saying that her husband loved staying on the balcony to drink a little wine, Lug obviously climbed a cliff and decided to check if what she said was true. He summons his sniper weapon and waits for his target to appear in sight, while Tart, well, she is just there watching. And as expected, the Count appears on the balcony, and Lug does what he wants. which is to kill people, giving a perfect little bullet to the Count's head. After that, he puts his weapon away and tells Tart that they have to leave. But when he sees Bridget arriving on the balcony, crying as she sees her husband's lifeless body falling to the ground. Unfortunately, seeing that scene, Lug feels somewhat sad, but he realizes that this is happening because in this life he was also raised and educated to be a human being. However, he does not regret his actions. After all, that man truly deserved to die. Then he returns home with Tart, telling himself that now he is an assassin, and that he will kill whoever he needs to kill. Not because someone is ordering him, but killing whoever he believes is right to kill. Months later, Lug and Tart had just returned from an uninhabited island where they had gone to practice magic. Upon returning, they are greeted by Maha on a beach, to whom Lug asks if something happened. Then she says she has good and bad news. So in a carriage back home, Maha tells them the good news. She says she found a divine treasure, which is a magic spear that can never be destroyed. She says the spear belongs to a man named 70 Magnets, who will probably be the hero due to his strength. However, he asks if she will be able to obtain the spear, and she guarantees that she will. In addition, for the bad news, she says that a civil war has broken out in a neighboring kingdom, and Daya's kingdom is planning to join the royal army against the enemy. But there is a soldier among the rebels who is causing problem. After that, Lug becomes very worried and decides to see Daya, so he enters her room through the window as always. She is very happy to see him, but he goes straight to the point, asking her about the war. And she says it is not a big problem, because the war is far from her kingdom, and besides that, they have magic users among them. But then Lug tells her that there is a strong soldier among the rebels, and that he may even be the great hero, which would make it impossible for him to be defeated by mere humans. So he offers his help for her and her family to flee to a safe kingdom before the enemies reach them. Daya refuses because she cannot leave her people in a difficult moment. At that moment, she shifts away from the conversation, calling him to go out for a bit, and Lug decides to go with her, since her father and his advisors are not in the city. Arriving in the city, they decide to participate in an archery game to win a little orc plushie, which she easily wins. Leaving the place, Daya tells Lug that she is hungry, and he promises to take her to a special place. While eating, Daya tells him that she prefers to eat a meal prepared by him, which makes Lug tell her that she will have that if she goes to his kingdom. Out of nowhere, in the middle of the way, they find a boy crying in a quiet area. When they ask what the problem is, they realize that the boy had become separated from his mother. So the two help the boy reunite with his mother. And because of Lug's kindness, Daya decides to reward him. And pay attention because the reward she will give will be amazing. The story continues. She gets caught in the story. She takes him to the city's hot springs. Get the idea. There, Lug asks if the bath is separated for different genders, but she says it is not, which means the two of them will bathe together to make everything even better. She tells him she reserved the entire place just for the two of them, and she begins undressing while Lug does the same. At last, they reach the bathing area, and they are fascinated by the size and beauty of the pool. They start playing around until Daya slips in the deep part of the pool, so she ends up needing to be rescued by the love of her life, and he also teaches her how to keep herself floating. Next, they hold hands in the water, censor everything edited, and Daya begins telling him how much she loves her kingdom, and seeing that she does not want to leave her father. Lug decides to accept her decision, but promises to help her if necessary. At the end of the night, they say goodbye to each other. Lug promises to return and see her, but she tells him she will be busy, and will let him know when they can meet again. To that, he agrees and heads home. When Lug leaves, we see that all the men pretending to be citizens are actually disguised soldiers, which means she has also chosen to enter the war. Back to Lug, well, he finds his parents beside a brutally wounded man, lying on the ground. Seeing this, Lug asks what happened, and his father says they were assigned an assassination job. Lug, however, asks who the target is, which makes his father give him the most shocking answer of his life. The target he must kill is Daya, the woman he loves. He says he will hand this job to Lug, yet he can reject it if he wants. So Lug asks him if it is not wrong for them to interfere in another kingdom's affairs during a war, and his father agrees with his line of thought, because their assassination could be exposed to another kingdom, which could cause his father to be executed. And his father agrees with his line of thought. Because their assassination could be revealed to another kingdom, which could cause an international conflict. His father then tells him that this request is based on personal reason, because the enemies defeated the kingdom of Viacon, while they supported the royal army in the civil war. And now the enemy's attention is focused on Daya, for they know she possesses powerful magic, and that is why they want her for themselves. So Lug's girl, oh no. Besides that, since Viacon is a Lughar known for its magic and commerce, no longer a military kingdom, The enemies know they can invade the Lughar easily, and that is why they are determined to destroy the entire city, to capture Daya, and to prevent his daughter from being taken. Count Viacone decided to choose the most difficult path, to avoid further bloodshed, and Daya agreed with this as well. Then his father tells him that the only way to save Daya is to fake her death and help her escape the kingdom, which is what his father wants him to do. At that moment, Lug finally understands the whole concept of the job and agrees to do it, thus saving Daya. He himself promised to run to her whenever she needed help. During the conversation, his father surprises him by saying that Daya is his mother's niece, which basically makes them cousin, and it kind of makes sense since the two of them have silver hair. But Lug responds by saying that he always loved the anime. Batman would place in 6th Lughar on the lists, and not seeing this as a problem, he is still determined to save the woman he loves. With that, he begins preparing to depart. Then Tart approaches and says she would like to go with him, but he refuses, saying the trip is too long for her, revealing that he wants to go as fast as possible. She then tells him she wants to go home, but would like to help him on the journey, sharing her strength with him. Upon hearing that, he agrees to her help and asks how she would do it, and she tells him she would use the wind spell. He taught her to pull him along with her. Suddenly, she casts the spell and creates a shield, and they set out on their journey, running at full speed, while Lug runs behind her. Tart truly helps Lug, for it is her energy being consumed by the resistance of the wind instead of his. Tart also pulls him with negative pressure, which affects her energy, not his. Unfortunately for them, when night arrives, the rain begins to fall, and Lug notices that Tart has already reached her limit, but she chooses not to listen and keeps pushing herself, for she is determined to help him until she cannot anymore. At last, in the morning while they are still running, Tart's shield begins to crack, and when it shatters, she is carried into the air. But fortunately, she is saved by Lug, who catches her in midair. At that moment, she begins crying. She apologizes for not being able to go beyond that. In response, Lug simply thanks her for helping him save his strength, and he returns to his journey. Hours later, Lug finally reaches Viacone and decides to take cover on a nearby hill, where he uses his assassin's sight to see what is happening below. He observes that around 1,500 enemies are surrounding the city, while Viacone's forces are only 200 men. He also discovers that there are magic users among the enemies, which completely removes Viacone's advantage of having mages. Realizing this, Lug decides to work on the enemy's weakness, and he runs near the battlefield and starts shooting at the magic users. Unfortunately, they notice what is happening and fire their arrows toward Lug, which makes him choose to scatter them by shooting explosive arrows filled with mana. At that moment, Lug sees Daya in a room inside the castle. Meanwhile, Viacone's army notices that the enemies are disorganized and take the opportunity to attack them. Lug, in order to complete his job, uses his magic to reach Daya without being noticed, and he carries a dead soldier with him to use as camouflage and to fake Daya's death. Shortly after, he manages to access the room where Daya is and finds her father. Seeing Lug, Daya becomes very happy and runs to him so he can save her. The girl's father introduces himself as the Count of Viacone and stays with them, saying that his daughter will be taken away. In a way, the Count of Viacone reveals that he knows the two of them are in love. Lug explains to them his escape plan by faking her death, and then tells her what she must say to her soldier before setting the room on fire to fake her death, since she supposedly died due to the flames. In the end, Lug opens the window of the room, so Daya can say what he wants her to say. At that moment, Lug begins to feel uncomfortable, and now he believes that some kind of danger is approaching, until suddenly, a very large and powerful weapon filled with mana is seen approaching the place where they are. Seeing this, Lug immediately moves Daya away from the incoming attack, causing a massive explosion and the collapse of part of the room. Fortunately, everyone is safe, and to their surprise, they find a very robust knight on the other side of the battlefield, who happened to be the one who launched the attack at them. Angry, Lug decides to attack the knight as well, summoning a cannon and sending a bomb toward the knight. This attack creates a huge explosion with flames, but to everyone's surprise, the knight is still standing, with only minor injuries. Lug then uses his assassin's sight to notice that the knight is becoming physically and magically stronger, a result of him growing angrier. Seeing this, Lug tells Daya and her father that no attack can affect the knight. Understanding the situation, Daya's father tells them to flee, for there is no longer any way to fake his daughter's death, now that the knight is here. After all, he was the one who violently ended the civil war. Suddenly, the knight shouts from the other side of the battlefield, saying that whoever attacked him should duel him. because he is impressed with that person's display of power. And if that person refuses, he will massacre everyone. A man says that if he loses the duel, he will withdraw all his forces, and they will never again turn against Vicomte. Observing the knight's abilities, who then introduces himself as the 70th Macros, Lug believes he must be the hero that Mara mentioned, considering the magic spear he wields. Lug then steps forward, and the 70th warns Lug not to even think of fleeing from a duel against him, placing our assassin who works in the shadows in a difficult situation. The duel is accepted, and knowing he cannot defeat this enemy, Lug summons a missile and sends it into the sky. Seeing how calm Lug is, Daya grows worried and tells Lug not to waste his life, but he says he is an assassin, and that he will be the one who assassinates his enemy. Before anything else, Lug and Daya's father decide to meet the 70th, telling the man that he must keep his promise, and he agrees because he believes there is no way Lug can win. In response, Lug tells him that he will be the winner of this duel, all while counting the seconds until the missile he released falls upon his enemy. Next, he tells Daya's father to leave, and while all of this is happening, he continues buying time for his missile to fall. He keeps talking, and in the end he decides to toss a coin to indicate when the fight should start. And when the coin falls, without Satanta noticing, Lug distracts him so he may meet his death. A death that happens the instant the coin hits the ground, and the missile that Lug sent into space returns to the Earth, falling onto Satanta and causing an enormous nuclear weapon level explosion. It turns out that Lug learned about this destructive weapon in his previous life. He knows that this weapon, when used at its full potential, can destroy an entire nation, which he considers perfect for taking down a powerful enemy like Satanta. However, the impact of the weapon is so strong that Daya and her father must protect themselves using a magic shield. While Lug is also caught off guard by the powerful shockwave and faints, Daya, who is unharmed, quickly runs to him, shouting for him to wake up. Fortunately, he regains consciousness, and she hugs him, saying she was terrified of losing him. Lug returns to his kingdom with Daya, where she is received by Tart and by Lug's parents, and thus things finally return to normal. Months later, after Daya has lived with them, Lug's father informs him of his intentions to adopt Daya. She would basically become Lug's younger sister, although she is actually 3 years older than he is. But his father says that this does not matter much, because she appears to be younger than him. She shares the same bloodline as his mother. The girl will also have to use a different name, but that is something for a second season. What matters is that Lug agrees with the plan along with his mother and Tart, who are present there. At this moment, his father tells him about the fact that the hero has arrived in their kingdom, which leaves Lug surprised by the fact that the 70 machines was not the hero. His father tells him to be careful with the situation, because the arrival of the hero means that the demon lord will appear soon, and Lug agrees with that. Finally, a young person arrives gracefully in a carriage at Alvin's castle, and is presented as the great hero, the one whom Lug must kill in the future. If it is a woman, she will become part of his harem.